Good morning. It is Thursday, June 4th. Wow, already June 4th. And this is Bed Talk number 54. If you're wondering, yes, it is a different bed. Visiting some friends in Charleston, South Carolina. So same theme, just different bed for Bed Talk 54. And the topic today is buckets, specifically being aware of the buckets we use. Our brains are so complex, so intelligent, and yet they seek simplicity. And one of the forms of simplicity that our brains seek is what I call buckets, putting situations and especially people into buckets. We're seeing it right now. We're dealing with a lot of challenges right now. We're still in the midst of the coronavirus and navigating that pandemic. And we have all this civil unrest and these protests and very real issues being raised and highlighted and support the raising of those. And yet many of these protests have gone in a direction that I believe doesn't serve any good. And that is the violence and the looting and the destruction. And yet notice how we tend to bucket situations, and we'll say, for example, my former hometown, Cleveland, we'll say the protesters looted, did this damage, instigated this violence. Tampa, where I live now, the same thing. The protesters engaged in this violent looting, destructive behavior. No, that's not really true. A small percentage of the protesters engaged in that behavior. And yet, notice how quickly we put people and situations and behavior into buckets. And we start using words like they. How often have you used they recently? I really want you to think about that in terms of talking about a situation that didn't go well, or talking about what's going on, for example, with the protests, and saying, I don't understand them. Well, who's them? What don't you understand? Do you not understand the people who are choosing to use their voices and their time and their energy to bring awareness to an issue around racism in this country? Or are you talking about that small group of people who engage in violent, destructive, and criminal behavior? Who's they? Who's them? That's what we want to do. It's a natural response to use buckets in general categories, and my invitation is resist it. Pay attention to your buckets. Pay attention to your theys and thems. Think about how many times recently have you said something, some version of, well, that's how they are, or how they are. I don't believe there's any they. There are individuals making choices, and those choices have impact outside themselves. So let's focus on the individuals and beware of our buckets, beware of our judgments, and pay attention and be really careful and cautious and aware of the ways that we can fall into the trap of putting people into buckets and linking the buckets to the impact. So that's my message today, June 4th, Bed Talk number 55 on buckets. As I always tell you, keep taking care of yourself and those you care about, and by all means, stay connected.